This is the breakdown.
Yes, people, welcome in. Guess what? We're back. It's episode 2 of The Breakdown. I'm AJ, founder of Cease and Desist Records, and today we're going to bring in Jude Spector, our normal host and presenter, who's funnily enough got out of doing the introduction this week, so you've got to put up with me talking about me all over again. And we're also going to bring in our first proper guest of the series, and that's Daniel James. You may or may not have heard of Daniel James before. If you haven't, you will today. And for those that do know, you might get to learn a little bit more. We're also going to touch on some latest news and a few other bits and pieces around the industry as we go through it, and then leave you with our favoured tracks of the moment. Right, so let's crack into it, shall we? For those of you, actually, before we do start, for those of you that have watched the first episode, thank you very much. The comments have been amazing. The feedback's been great. And hopefully you enjoy everything else that the series has to offer. If you haven't subscribed, make sure you hit that button now. We're on Spotify and on YouTube. Right, let's crack into it and get in the boys. Welcome in, Dan and Jude. Let's go.
Hello.
Yo.
That wasn't too bad, that intro.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
One take this time instead of 10.
I'm impressed.
No edits. No edits. Right, now, Dan, welcome in. Nice to have you on board.
Thank you for having me.
It's, obviously we've known each other for quite a while, so some of the questions, most of the questions are probably hopefully going to be from Jude today. Before we get into your story, Jude, how's your week been?
It's been very, very nice. A lot of unexpected things have occurred.
They have. They have. And I think we're actually going to we're going to shuffle our podcast series around and do our episode in a fortnight, which will be a catch up, a summary of your release. Yeah, an update of how well it's went. Spoiler, over 450,000 playlist reach.
Mad.
Not too shabby. Spoiler number 2, first Cease and Desist record to hit the top 10 overall releases.
Come on. Ooh.
Boosh. Well done.
Thank you.
You're gassing him right now, bro. Come on.
Yeah, it's alright. I'll deflate him later.
No, I didn't know it was 450k. I wasn't aware. The last time I checked it was when it hit 250.
Yeah, then Insomniac added it, didn't he?
Yeah, I wasn't expecting that.
Which big ups Insomniac.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, we're gonna come on to that. So your week's been good. Do you know what's been going on in the week of music? A few little highlights that I've kind of pinpointed as significance.
Let's see.
So the first one I'll touch on is the state of UK nightlife and the fact that the BBC decided to put out a mini documentary, 30-minute documentary on nightclubs in the UK.
They went to my uni.
They did go to your uni. They did indeed.
Cam and Leah, they interviewed my good friends.
Why weren't you on it?
Good shout out CAD.
It's been...
Come on.
The only...
Don't choke on the grapes.
Whoa. Oh. But yeah, they picked 2 people. So what?
Well, they did. Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you watched it? Have you seen it?
Yeah.
I haven't yet, to be fair. I haven't got around to watching it.
It's definitely worth a watch. I mean, it doesn't really tell us anything new, but I think from a perspective of those that aren't aware of what's going on and how dramatically the industry's changed on the street, I think it's good for highlighting awareness. I think with our plan, so for those that don't know, we are hoping to run an event in the south in July. And I think the plan for that event is actually quite poignant. The highest, seemingly the cost of going out regularly was highlighted in that episode as being one of the major driving factors. Apart from, the self-care and the not drinking as much alcohol, the cost of alcohol, the cost of entry, the cost of events. And what the episode also highlighted was the fact that there is still an underground community out there. And it's the underground community that aren't necessarily able to go out as much or aren't going out as much, but they still want to have those nights with locals, and they don't necessarily want the big names on the ticket. Which that for me was a little bit of a light bulb moment, especially with what we're planning to do in July. So for anyone that hasn't watched it, it's on BBC iPlayer now. I can't remember the title off the top of my head, so I'll probably add it as an overlay and a link. And I'll put a link in the description of the chat as well, so you can go and check it out. But it's definitely worth a watch. And I think the problem we've got in the industry is that the cost of alcohol, the cost of business rates, venues, even the cost of bigger name DJs now is so high that the events aren't profitable. So nightclubs are going under. What got me, big statistic, if it carries on in the way that it's going, by the 30th of November 2029, there will be not a single nightclub left on the high street.
Yeah.
And that is, we haven't got many nightclubs really in my neck of the woods anyway. That's probably a good thing, but it's...
You'd be trying to book it every week.
Mate, at least I might get a booking. It's to have none and to have to rely upon bigger events where you're paying £350 a weekend. I looked at taking my stepdaughter to Reading or Leeds because she's desperate to go to a festival, being under 18. She wants to go and see these big artists, but the only way you can get to see the big artists now is at a festival. The only festivals you can take her to legally is Glastonbury, Leeds and Reading. Leeds and Reading, £350 each for a weekend. No, sorry, it's not happening. Not happening. I've got far too many other shows and bits and pieces to go to. I can't. No, I can't. So in the end, I'm taking her to BBC Big Weekend on Friday, which hopefully that'll be good. Confidence Man's there. That'll be nice. James Hype's there. That'll be good. So yeah, looking forward to that one. Anyway, I'm digressing. It's supposed to be a news. I'm doing my usual, aren't I? What else did I spot? There are rumours. Spotify rumours. Bum, bum, bum. Spotify's back in the mix. Spotify rumours that they're bringing out, or they're going to be bringing out, the Premium Deluxe package. Now, the Premium Deluxe package is their way of monetizing a little bit more, and in doing so, they'll give you lossless audio quality, set up especially for headphones and high quality headphones and stuff. Sounds fantastic. Not too dissimilar to what Apple Music are doing already, maybe. But the bit that seems to be standout is something within the package, and I don't want to be quoted on this, but you can Google it. There is a particular lawyer in America that's quite active on TikTok and socials talking about it at the minute. But there's something about being able to live remix and mash up music.
I've seen this. Which,
from a label perspective and from an artist perspective, the first thing that springs to mind is copyright. Well, what the hell? I know people do mashups and remixes and put them on SoundCloud and so on and so forth, and bootlegs, and I'm guilty of that's charged when it comes to doing stuff like that. But then that's part of the artist development process anyway. And they're not monetized. But Spotify's a monetized platform, and they're charging more for Premium Deluxe.
Yeah.
So who's going to get the revenue from this? But according to the terms and conditions, the DSPs, the distributors are changing, or it's already in their T's and C's, that by distributing your music with that distributor, you are giving away the authorization to live mashup and remix your music and get no monetization for it.
You're giving away the rights for it, aren't you, essentially?
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
Says a lot.
That's not going to go down well. That's not going to go down well.
Yeah.
And I don't know if either of you guys have heard of or follow Damien Keys.
I know the name.
Damien Keys, UK guy, now lives out in the States. He's just started this week, 2 days ago, in a little bit of a campaign for all DSPs, 1 stream, 1 cent. Complete fairness across the board, 1 stream, 1 cent. Minimum wage for artists.
Yeah.
Implement a minimum wage for artists, 1 stream, 1
Should
cent.
be.
The problem is, all the artists, all the independent artists and the smaller guys and the guys that aren't in major label deals are going to be 1 stream, 1 cent. I, for one, am. Hell, I've looked at even building software that would be capable of doing that. It's the guys that are on the major labels that are getting a bigger slice of the pie, because that's what essentially is what's happening. The guys on the majors get a bigger slice of the pie than the ones underneath, even if. You could listen to one of my tracks 10 times, but Ed Sheeran might get more of a cut from your monthly premium subscription because he's got the biggest percentage of plays across the whole platform that month. But you've not listened to Ed Sheeran. Oh, no, don't get me wrong, I love Ed Sheeran and I think his music's great and he's really, really talented. But you've not listened to him. You've listened to me. So why aren't I getting your money from your monthly?
Why aren't you getting your cut?
Exactly. So I think we've probably got a big topic in the future to come on that. So if anybody out there's listening that wants to get involved in a Spotify podcast series, give us a shout. What else was there? 2 other things, really quickly. I discovered in the promotion of our latest release, which was funnily enough by a guy called Jude Spector and BXN.
Who's that?
Who the is that?
BNX. He's BNX. What?
BNX. Some guys.
Jude. Jude.
Jude.
Not your alias, is it? Just roll reverse.
You know, I accidentally called you Jude Skyfall the other day because I had the wrong Bond film stuck in my head.
I mean, good soundtrack, to be fair.
Can't lie.
There you go. There's a remix waiting there, isn't there?
Anyway. Break it down. There's I found out, and I probably should have known this beforehand, but I discovered in all of that there are ways and means of getting your release in a Beatport chart from release day. Costs money, but there is a little scheme and a little network of promotional people, shall we say, that like, here's my monthly money, and then another label will say, here's my monthly money, and then another label will say, here's my monthly money, and then they all buy each other's music on release day or pre-order.
Oh.
So then it goes bing, 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 up the Beatport chart.
Yeah, it makes it climb up and...
Damn.
Wow.
So really, the music industry is just basically a game of like whoever's got the most money in it. Really.
So
let's be fair, like
yeah, like networking.
I'm sorry to call like people out
money,
and what have you, but you know.
That's what we do, seemingly.
Exactly, that's the point of the podcast. Mic drop, see you later.
Wait, so you're telling me Break It Down was up against that? Oh,
yes.
I'm so happy I hit top 10.
Yeah,
so,
there you go. That's a lot for your track, though, don't it? To be fair,
Break It Down was up against that, and I believe the chart where we got it was 10th, wasn't it? In the
10th, yeah.
10th. 7 of those releases, from 9 to 1, were EP releases with multiple records and artists on.
Nice.
So as a single release, you could classify yourself there as in top 3.
No, I don't actually.
Damn.
Well done.
I didn't even think of it that way. Damn.
Yeah. So yeah. What do you believe? Spotify push what they want to push as part of the algorithm. Great, fine, yeah, get that. Playlists are, you submit to playlists, you pay them a bit of money, they'll put you on the list. great. Some will pick you up free. Some guys will pick you up purely because it's like, well, the cease and desist playlist on Spotify, for example, I go through a ton of new releases every week and update the playlists manually because I like the track. Not because anyone submitted it to us, not because I've been paid to put it on there. It's an organic track based on music that sounds like cease and desist, hence why it's called Sounds Like. But yeah, it's nothing is seemingly sacred from manipulation in charting, which still kind of a bit dumbfounded on that one.
That's a real. That must be weird because, I mean, do the artists know, or
More than
is
likely.
Because if
More
so,
than likely.
then if you achieve, I don't know, it's a bit of a bittersweet moment. You achieve what you want to achieve, but then it's like
It's always like it's
yeah,
it's like it's been faked, isn't it? Really? You know?
yeah.
I mean, it's funny you say about it because there's a couple of WhatsApp groups that I'm in, and you see them doing the same thing. I won't mention names, but you see them sort of say, "Oh yeah, if I buy your track, you'll buy mine," and whatever. And you sort of think like, yeah, okay, like to an extent, at that level, I guess it's mates supporting mates and what have you, isn't it? But when you're in those leagues, that's just
Yeah.
And that's where, and to a point, you can say, well, look, you're supporting, you're in a WhatsApp group, your mates supporting mates. It's all part of the support network of the music industry. Let's face it, it's ruined without a support network.
Yeah, 100%.
You have that. Well, then you've got all this labels being supported by this label, who's being supported by that label, and it doesn't stop. It just gets bigger and bigger.
It just scales up, doesn't it?
Do the artists know? I mean, to be fair, I didn't know, but then maybe I've been a bit naive to it. But I've not been back in the industry long enough to know. All I do know is I ain't ever doing that. I'd rather not be charted. Personally, and as a label, I'd rather not be charted than not achieve it organically. Yeah, 100%, 100%. Now, there are some people. I mean, loads of people could sit here and speculate and go, "Well, I bet so and so did that because there's no way that track should have been, top 10 or whatever." I don't necessarily think that's the case for everything, but I think there are some potentially obvious ones that appear out of nowhere, and
you can hear some occasionally, can't you? Like, it's an all right track, but you're like, is it really good enough? Is it really the right thing that people are actually listening to, or has somebody paid for a slot almost?
Yeah, like you're pay to win.
Yeah. Well, you pay to play, so why don't you pay to win as well? Do you know what I mean? And the thing is, you look at the people that are paying to play because if they've got the social media following because they've paid to play and they've got the videos and they've got the look at me at Tomorrowland and blah 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 blah, they get a bigger name for themselves. They're then paying to get yourself up the charts to be heard more and picked up by more DJs. It's no different. We're musicians who, instead of being paid for our art, are having to pay to get people to hear it.
Yeah.
That's my hot take for this episode. And it's fucking wrong. It's morally wrong. It's ethically wrong. It's financially wrong. Cease and desist that behaviour. Let's go. Right, on that note, one more thing.
That was good.
One more thing to top into. YouTube Shorts are now being, view count is being counted differently. So previously, your view count on a YouTube short was taken after somebody had watched your short for a period of seconds, a minimum amount, as it were. And then the monetization on that was based on those numbers. Well, now they're falling into line with everything else. And the minute that short plays or replays will count as a play count. However, they will still be monetized based on engaged views,
engagement, and
so no changes under the UPP. Is it UPP? Is it UPP they call it?
No idea.
UPP, the user payment program or whatever it is. So there's no changes to the payments, but you will start to see, for those that do YouTube Shorts, you will start to see the numbers suddenly go
Yeah.
Especially where someone's got it replaying because they've fallen asleep with their phone on, for example, or whatever.
Yeah, and also for YouTube Shorts, they've increased the time for each video as well.
Yeah.
I see shorts.
Yeah,
I see shorts that are like 3 minutes long now.
I was going to say that because TikTok have done the same thing, haven't they?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure TikTok can do up to half an hour now, can't they, from memory?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're trying to cater to like the people that prefer long form content, I guess.
It's weird, isn't it? We're going off the garden path here a little bit, but YouTube's trying
Welcome
to
to
cater
the
like
podcast.
TikTok, and then TikTok's trying to be like YouTube. It's like, complete role reversal, isn't it, really?
I think the problem is when you make people's attention spans less than 3 seconds,
yeah,
you haven't really got anywhere to go.
No.
You've run it down. And they are in control of the algorithm.
Yeah, 100%.
So actually, this clip's 15 seconds long, but this clip's 45 seconds long. We're going to push this clip at 45 seconds long because it's longer, and therefore, because the algorithm has shifted, more people will start doing longer content, and then hopefully, I so hope, attention spans will start to increase, and you'll be able to actually get decent content out in a period of time, rather than trying to wrap it all up and,
they're trying
put
to
a record on with your Weetabix.
They're trying to reverse the damage.
Yeah, exactly. Damage reversal. Is it? Is it damage reversal? So that's my roundup of the news. You need a big cue of dun 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 kind of music. We'll have to sort that out actually to go with a grape counter, Mr. Spectre.
Newsflash.
If anyone's got any comments, feedback, if I've got anything wrong as usual, just call me out. It's fine. Yeah, there we go. Anything from you boys?
No. I mean, yeah, it's quite interesting to kind of see just the landscape of how things are changing. I mean, especially when it comes to social media. Obviously, I do quite a lot of that, especially when it comes to YouTube. I feel like as much as I'm very invested in short form, I feel like my preference is long form. So YouTube, long 30, 40 hour long sets and that sort of stuff is, to me, that's kind of my bread and butter. So to see that there's a shift, which was a massive shift to short form, and you have to make sure like every single video's got some sort of hook, otherwise you'll lose them straight away and all that kind of stuff. So then see the shift going back it's good to see, to be honest. It's really good to see.
I'm with you on that. I mean, my DJ style, and my mixes probably last a minute on their own.
So you have a half an hour set.
Do you know what I mean? I need a half an hour set to get 10 tunes in. Do you know what I mean? So am I going to change? Was I going to change my DJ style to suit social media? Was I? No.
Yeah.
I've DJ'd like that for 20 years, 30 years. I'm not doing it. I'm not changing it. But that's the problem. I mean, I don't do a lot of social media.
No.
For multiple reasons. I do need to do more. I know I need to do more. Everybody needs to do more. It is the way of the world, whether we like it or not. I don't like it, but I'm going to have to do it.
It's a love-hate relationship.
No, it's a hate-hate relationship.
Necessary evil.
I'm going to try and learn to love doing it. But for me, it's short form. It's like, I can't. It's like the podcast. A podcast needs to be like 45, 60 minutes long because A, I talk too much, and B, how do you get engaging content across, especially in an unedited, raw, deep dive, hot takes, no filter fashion? How do you do it? You don't. So
you can do a podcast and a podcast in a short form content way, is there? Realistically, you could do like a very quick, bang it out Q&A sort of thing, couldn't you? To be fair, but there's no way you could do like just 3 people sitting in front of cameras and chatting shit for an hour.
I can chat shit all day.
Well, yeah. I mean, how
you
often
spent days with me.
I was gonna say, how often do we get on WhatsApp calls and say, we've not got much time, and like 3 hours later we're still on the same WhatsApp call.
And we've not done or talked about what we needed to in the first place. Yeah.
Yeah, sounds about right.
I hope, part of me actually wonders, is this podcast for the label to help people and to put stuff out there that isn't out there or isn't necessarily discussed as much as it is? Or is it just for me to tire myself out talking? I do wonder. Jokes. Anyway, you touched on YouTube and your methods with that, and I'm pretty sure we're going to circle back round on that. But I'll kick us off with welcoming Daniel James again.
Welcome.
First official guest, because BXN ended up semi-hosting the podcast last time, which wasn't the plan. Actually, massive shout out to BXN. He smashed it in the last podcast. Wasn't meant to be in for the duration. Wasn't meant to be part of the question asking panel. I was supposed to ask him a ton of questions and didn't, for which I feel really, really bad about. And we are going to loop back round with hopefully with BXN if we can convince him to come back. But if not, we will get some questions out of him for everybody to or answers out of him anyway. Yeah, I think I have, to be fair. That said, Daniel James, let's go proper MSN fashion. Age, sex, location, go.
Yeah. What was the question?
It's the most basic of questions ever. Age, sex, location. Age, sex, location.
Oh, okay.
ASL, mate. That's what we all used on the chat forums, wasn't it, years ago?
I've never heard that before.
What?
So I am
age.
based in Wiltshire, originally from Hertfordshire. Big up to Stevenage. Yeah.
Stevenage massive.
Well, I'm like right on the border of Hampshire and Wiltshire, basically. I'm 32, 33 in July, and I've basically been here all my life, to be fair. So, yeah, well travelled across the south of the UK.
Well, for someone that's been sat in that room all your life, you look well for it. So,
thanks.
Okay, so you're 32. When did you? So the reason we got you on is because of your journey.
Yeah.
Obviously, I've witnessed part of it, having been with you for the last couple of years or whatever. Yeah. That sounded wrong, didn't it?
Pause.
Friends for the last couple of years.
Nice to tell people that.
Whoa. Exposed. Exposed.
Oh dear.
Leaked.
Have I? No, I haven't.
No, that was your ceiling a little while ago, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. Big shout out to Dexsaver, who literally saved my life. Saved my life.
You should have seen the WhatsApp groups. Honestly, it was panicking.
Holy crap!
I shit you not. I came down into this room and I'm like, oh shit, what's that noise? And it's dripping right there, and right here.
Oh no!
Is my XZ. The Dexsaver was a puddle in the middle.
Damn.
Massive puddle in the middle.
The deck has plot armor. Like, damn.
And it's solid as a rock.
That's good. Invest in a
Dexsaver.
So,
if you haven't got a Dexsaver, even if you don't think you need one, get one. Do it.
Not sponsored, by the way.
Not sponsored by Dexsaver.
That would have been so unlucky. Like, just delete perfectly on.
It was right in the middle of the mixer element of the Dex. Right in the middle. Luckily, my DJS wasn't here. Can you imagine? Can you imagine if my DJS had come back? I finally got my DJS back after all this time.
Luck.
No Dexsaver, and it gets water damage like that. Anyway, so we're digressing again. When did you start DJing? What got you into it? How did the journey start? Roll it back. How many years? What were we talking?
Christ. Professionally, this year will be my 8th year in clubs and events. How long have I actually been a DJ? Since the age of like 10, 11, quite a long time. Long time. I've always been around it, to be fair. Like, music is just such a massive part of my life. My dad and my uncle, they both used to be DJs as well, so they were DJs in the 70s, I think it was, 70s, 80s. But they did mobile DJing, basically. So
Shout out to the mobile DJs out there.
Yeah, shout out to the mobile DJs. They did birthday parties and that kind of stuff. They didn't do clubs and kind of very much what I do now. What kicked it off was, again, actually, it was my dad, to be fair. So when I was in secondary school, they opened up a local radio station that was connected to the school that I went to. He was a volunteer at the start. That was now 18 years ago. It's been running this year. Started literally in a porta cabin on the side of the school that I was going to. He's now chairman of it, which is mad. And then it just kind of kicked off from there. Really, they did some after school, day in radio things, and it was sort of teaching you how to do presenting and that kind of stuff. And I showed my interest in it, but at the time, like, I wanted to get involved in that sort of stuff, but I think a lot of it was I didn't have the confidence to like sit in a studio and sort of say, oh, what do I talk about, in between music and that kind of stuff. I didn't really see how I could kind of put my personality at the time into that sort of thing. So whilst they did all of their radio shows, which is purely a community station, so it's the local towns. They did a lot of like local events as well, so they had a trailer, did fates and that kind of stuff. And I started off basically by doing that. I was helping them set the trailer up, and then it was occasionally playing a bit of music on iTunes from the laptop. And a couple months into it, they were approached by the local services to basically be the music suppliers for this thing called Blues and Zoos Disco. That's a throwback, blimey. And it was basically just it was a disco for school-aged kids that was basically supported and run by all the local services. So where I live, it's very military based. So it was, going to be army and police and all the rest of it. And that's really what kicked it off. It was, I remember, it was setting it all up and then again going on iTunes. But, the more I got into it, it was then sort of make an actual curated playlist and saying, oh yeah, this song will go with that song. Didn't have any decks by this point. It was purely just kind of, all organising tracks in a way that I felt sounded good. And then I remember just rocking up one day and Dad had said, oh, I can see you're really getting into it. And he bought me my first set of decks, which was a Tractor Scratch Pro Lite controller from memory.
Yeah, actually, I remember it.
My first software was Tractor.
Likewise.
Yeah, which is mad, really, because I don't really have anything to do with Tractor anymore. To be fair, I'm on Rekordbox now, so yeah, and it kicked off from there, basically.
So really, we need to rename the episode to From Radio to Radio. Because the journey didn't start in the bedroom like most people's does. I mean, mine did.
No, it didn't.
Jude, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, mine did.
Yours, yeah. But it actually started with radio. And it's funny you mention that because prior to me ever getting into DJing, my first appearance was on a community radio station in my local town.
That was it. Right.
And I used to go on a Saturday and tell jokes. How embarrassing is that?
Oh, I really want to hear these now.
And I don't
Please
think
try and find some sound clips.
Mate, I still carry the very first joke with me today.
Go on.
And that was what you call a blind dinosaur.
Do you think he saw us?
Do you think he saw us? And then I'd follow it up with, but what's his dad called? Do you think he saw us, Rex? Mic drop. Anyway, back to Danny James.
Oh dear.
No filter. No edits.
Yeah, no. I was gonna say no edits, no cuts, guys. Come on.
No cuts. That stays.
Okay. So we do no edits. I mean, even the last one was unedited, as you saw from the whole mask episode. Still, actually, update on the mask thing. I'm using it for branding, but I'm not going to wear it anymore.
Okay.
By the way,
Okay.
just follow on from the last episode. That's my point. So I'll still use it, and I'll still wear it at events. But I'm not only soullessly behind the mask. So
Okay. So that's like the update, the conclusion of
that's the
discussion.
conclusion. Yeah. So there we go. Back to Daniel James. So I've got to stop doing that, guys. It's so embarrassing. So embarrassing. To be fair, I'm not sure what's worse: continually doing that, or actually admitting in a live podcast that I used to tell shit jokes on community radio.
Okay, so Daniel James. So, what was your first introduction to music?
I guess again it was my dad really. I for the longest time I always remember. We used to. I live near Salisbury, so we used to go to Salisbury quite a lot, and we were driving to Salisbury, and they would have like the latest Ministry of Sound CD on or something like that. So it's to be fair, this whole thing is very kind of connected to the family, really, to be honest. Again, music's always been a massive part of my life, whether it's been dance music or I can play the guitar and drums. I used to be in a band in school. Actually went through a phase at one point of listening to metal music, which was mad. I'd listen to Slipknot and like Bullet for My Valentine and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, I can just always remember just listening to music, to be honest with you.
Can you remember what your first record was and what format that was on?
Yeah, I can. It's really embarrassing.
Yes.
I remember the first like ever thing that I got that was my own, that wasn't like we didn't have things like Spotify, like iTunes wasn't a thing at that point. It was CDs, it was like cassettes and that sort of stuff. So the first thing that I ever got was for a birthday, and I got a CD player, and it was Venga Boys and CD. That goes to show how far back it was. It was Venga Boys on CD. And then just, yeah, I mean, as much as dance music has always been a thing for me, I think back then kind of what I listened to in comparison to what I play, to an extent, to very different things. I think I listened to more broader music back then. So again, it was a lot of rock, it was a lot of like AC/DC, that sort of stuff. But then it'd be the other end of the spectrum where it would be like 50 Cent, Eminem, that sort of stuff. Like I used
Hip-hop.
to love, yeah, exactly, hip hop and R&B, and what you would call now, I guess, like history throwback stuff. Everything you would kind of hear in one of their history hours. So, and then yeah, it would be random things like the Finger Boys, sort of just chucked in the midst of it.
That's kind of what it's like, and I don't know. Jude might be able to answer this a little bit more, but I was very much the same. I listened to everything, almost anything and everything. Jean-Michel Jarre, look him up, phenomenal. That's what got me into electronic music.
Nice.
But there's such a broad spectrum, and I'm seeing it now with my stepdaughter. She's 15 and a half, coming on 16, and her spectrum of music, what she listens to, it'll be garage one minute, it'll be trap and grime the next minute, then it's old school R&B, like early 90s R&B. She's listening to a lot of music that I grew up listening to. And it's almost like has it always been like that, Jude? Was it like for you? Did you listen to a broader spectrum? Because you're kind of in the middle, but you're you're behind Dan, aren't you? So I'm the old fart. And
I was kind of at the. So when I grew up, the MP3 player was a thing. I I would borrow my brother's MP3 player, and it was stacked full of like songs, like Arctic Monkeys,
Yeah.
from
There you go.
like rock to house.
Yeah.
I leaned more towards the house. I remember one of my first the first time I listened to house, it was Robin S. Show Me Love on his
Nice.
MP3 player, and I was like, whoa, what is this? This is amazing. I need to explore more of this.
Change
And
your life.
yeah, yeah, and then Daft Punk, Stronger, Better. I think that's the name.
Yeah,
Um,
harder, stronger, better, whatever it
Harder,
is.
Stronger,
Yeah.
Better. Yeah,
Yeah, so
I don't know the order. I forgot the order, but yeah. But I would say, yeah, I guess I did listen to a mix. I remember listening to Green Day, Muse.
yeah.
My brother, I'm influenced a lot by my brother. If you can't tell, my brother used to love Muse. I remember him trying to play Hysteria on
Yeah,
the
bit of
bass
Muse.
guitar, and by the
Yeah.
way, it's very hard. It takes a
Mm.
while,
Oh
especially
yeah.
if you're new.
Yeah.
And yeah, but I'll say my first introduction to music was like jazz,
Okay.
jazz from my dad and disco from my mum,
Oh
and
well.
I guess the disco kind of progressed to house with my brother's taste, and then here I am today. Yeah,
Nice.
Fair play.
it's a mix. Basically, yes. It's pretty much the same but different format. Different format.
Mm. I
CDs
always
did exist, but yeah, yeah.
They weren't the
So
kind of main like format, I guess.
yeah,
so slight tangent here then. Track that changed your life, Jude.
track that changed my life.
Was it Robin S. Show Me Love? I mean, it's a solid one as a life changer. To be fair.
I would say, okay, my brother had Daft Punk, Stronger, Better, Harder, and he also had the Kanye West, Stronger as well.
Yeah, nice.
And if you don't know, the credits of Stronger by Kanye West is stacked. So like,
Oh,
I
yeah,
mean,
probably.
Kanye
That's when he
West.
used to pay to license samples. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Kanye it's stacked. Timbaland on drums, Mike Dean on synths. Of course, Kanye West sampled Daft Punk, and then Kanye West would rap. It's a stacked lineup, and I don't know. That kind of introduced me to Daft Punk, which led to house and led to where I am today.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah,
Valid. I like that. I like that, and it's got backstory with it as well. What
yeah,
about you, Dan?
Stronger by
100%.
Kanye West.
Such a long time ago now. I don't know if there's a particular track, or perhaps if there was, I probably don't remember it now, to be honest, because it was quite a long time ago. I think for me, like the changing point almost. Sorry, that was a dog. If you didn't hear that, I think it was
she said.
It was like listening to the Ministry of Sound CDs, you know. So it would just it would be like listening to the 2000s Ministry of CDs, and you know the I guess like growing up, it would be like, you know, the Avicii when Levels came out, and Martin Garrix and that kind of stuff. I think for me, like when I especially really started getting into dance music, as much as it was house, it wasn't anyway in the way it is now. You know, it was a lot more for me then. It was big room, or what would be called big room now. You know, it was future house, it was EDM, it was all that sort of stuff. So again, it was the Martin Garrixes, it was the, you know, Don Diablos and all those kind of people. You know, people like James Hype as an example, they were around, you know, when I started listening to that sort of stuff, but he was so much smaller, I guess, in comparison, especially to what he is now. And I think really it was probably actually it was James that kind of really then started, you know, I heard a lot of his remixes. You know, I started working in clubs and stuff. You know, I started working doing bar work, and then I think that at that point, I think it was 2018, I want to say, I was working in my local club, doing bar work, and then, you know, I was there every Friday and Saturday, and then, you know, house was like really big. You know, it was that massive like EDM phase. It was Duke Dumont and all of those kind of people, Robin Skulls and all that kind of all those sort of artists. And I sort of started hearing it. I thought, oh, this is really good. This is, and I started like just seeing the reaction that people were giving to these tunes, and like I was just like, oh my god, what sort of music is this? And then that was just kind of what led me onto it, really. So,
that's interesting.
yeah.
Also,
wait,
pet hate that I really just need to jump on. EDM stands for electronic dance music.
Yeah.
Which means it covers all genres. Drum and bass is EDM. Garage is EDM. The label of EDM is to describe big room, main stage, future house, whatever.
Yeah.
It's frustrating.
Yeah, I think the thing is,
I just need to put it out there.
You are right, and obviously it's always been that way. But I think especially when people like Avicii and Martin Garrix and that, as much as now we say Martin Garrix, he's progressive house as an example. Like I don't think like genres were particularly as specified as they probably are now. Really,
I think they were.
Because there's so many like split
were.
off genres and stuff.
That's the difference now. There are sub-genres. I mean, tech house has almost become a genre of its own, with Latin tech, with
Latin
Afro
tech,
house, with,
minimal tech.
Everything kind of is pointing into tech as a sub-genre.
And then there are people saying like bass tech is like a mix of like bass house and tech house, and it's like
yeah. I mean, bass house has changed because of that.
Yeah, bass house is so broad, by the way. Like so many different styles now.
Yeah, you can have bass house, which is more like bass line.
I was just going to say that.
On the cusp of dubstep in itself.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And then you've got a garage infused twist with it. I mean, genres you could talk about for days. But yeah, I think it's one of those things. Like, if I was to put at the top of my social media profile, music producer, am I a music producer? Well, I don't produce live instrumentation.
Yeah.
So I produced electronic music. Therefore, I'm an EDM producer because I do dance music predominantly. So I'm an EDM producer, but I don't produce the genre EDM.
No. Do
you see what I mean? And it just throws an added curveball that we don't need people in a confused industry at the best of times anyway. Right, pet hate out the window. Oh, that's bright.
Okay, so
have you got any? Go on then, Jude. Go on, Jude.
Yeah, I've got a question for Daniel James. So you're a tech house DJ, right? You'd say tech house DJ producer.
Yeah.
What introduced you to tech house? What artists inspired you?
Probably would be James, to be fair. I think I can almost guarantee a lot of people would say that, right? But
true.
There's James, Clone, Pauser, like back before he blew up. Matt Sassari, I've followed him for years. So there's quite a few, but I think like, especially when I was kind of, again, I guess the way that I kind of lock on to artists now, obviously because I'm a heck of a lot more involved in it than I was back then. Right when I first started out, I had a day job. I was in the motor industry. I was in the car trade. I did car sales. So like to me back then, it was just like, yeah, DJing's cool. Like I like this guy, but like I don't think my attitude was, oh yeah, I like the artist. I was just like, yeah, I like the song. But now I do this full time, and I think because of the way that I design my sets, like I follow more the lines of the artist now. Sort of again things like Matt Sassari, like there was a couple of years where he didn't fall off for me. That's completely the wrong way to say it. But there was probably a year or so where I probably didn't follow him as much, but because my sound has changed so much now, as much as I say I'm a tech house DJ and producer, like if people watch my YouTube streams, like the one that I did Monday just gone, there's a lot of bass in there. It's tech house, but it's like very bassy tech house. I mean, you saw me last year, didn't you, at the cease and desist event? Like, as much as it's tech house, it's not like 124 tech house. It's like 128, like 130 tech, and it's like in your face
high energy
stuff. Yeah, exactly. I do play a lot of bass house. I've recently just found this guy who does a lot of dubstep-esque house remixes and stuff like that. So I think it's evolved a lot, to be honest.
Sound does evolve, doesn't it?
Yeah,
sound evolves, and as well as your 100%. Skills evolve, you start getting influenced by other bits and pieces. You know what I'm like with my breakbeat at the minute. And it's the and we have phases in whether we want to eat pizza solidly for 2 weeks or we've then gone off pizza because we've overindulged in it, and so on. We're gonna obviously hark back to James.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's going to be a feature a little bit later. So we've done a 10-year stint then, from 12 to about 22-ish roughly. We've gone through radio. You've got your first controller, and you've actually started curating your playlists and your music and thinking about what fits nicely. I imagine there's probably a bit of wordplay in there as well from track to track, because that tends to creep in. What came next? What happened? Let's go from that period of time to you playing at Cease and Desist's debut event in Bristol, for example.
Sure. Okay. So I made quite a big swing. I think I did the whole full-time job thing, DJing on the side, and as much as I love.
Was that paid? Sorry, I don't want to jump in, but for guys that are starting, or they're DJing in their bedrooms at the minute, or they're just starting out, what was your transition like, for the want of a better expression?
So, starting out, mind again, really, when I started the industry, it was a very different place, right? I started out by, again, working behind the bar in my local nightclub. I got talking to the Friday and Saturday night DJs, basically. What actually completely started it off was not even DJing for them. I did the lights. I did all the visual stuff.
So DJ.
Yeah, exactly. So I did the visuals. Cool. So like I would do perhaps a couple of hours behind the bar. And then I would go when their main set starts, as an example, and I'd control all the lights, and then you got talking to him more and more, and then started doing warm-up sets for him, and it literally just progressed from there, basically. So,
and was that paid? Was that your first introduction to getting paid, or was it right? Okay,
no, it wasn't.
There's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with that. Christ, we all do it.
It's not. It's again. I think obviously things are very different now, right? Obviously there's a lot more DJs out there now, a lot more opportunities. The way I saw it was, it's an opportunity for me to learn a skill, right? The connections that I was making at the time have now led on to some huge opportunities, which I'm sure we'll discuss. But there was, I still even occasionally do them now. If the way I look at it is, if I can do, a gig as an example, if I get booked to do an hour or 2 hour slot, and I go, okay, here's 300-400 quid as an example. If I then have somebody approach me and say, okay, we've got this, cool, intimate little event, it's going to be a couple hundred people, what have you, don't have a massive budget, then 9 times out of 10, I would probably say, okay, just cover me some fuel, or don't worry about it, and I'll come and play. I was supposed to actually do one last night, but I had to do something else, and that was for a friend of mine's brand who owns his own radio station, and he does sort of little pop-up events in and around Southampton, and that was a free one. So I think you'll find, I'm sure you guys probably would agree with this, that you would still see even like big artists like that still occasionally do free stuff.
I think you have to.
Yeah,
I think,
100%.
and to be fair, I think
100%.
the way the industry has gone and the way it's going in terms of club nights and UK-wide events and the cost of going out and so on and so forth, you've got to be prepared to do a couple of freebies, because if you don't, it's going to fall apart, and there will be
100%.
no clubs left. Because I'm all for getting paid. Everybody, everybody needs to be
I love
paid.
getting paid. Want to get paid?
We'll get paid on, shall we? Will that work? We'll get paid on a podcast. It's Sabian paid, for those that don't know what I'm referring to there. Big up, paid. I think that there's all something for getting paid. I think the guys that are commanding £2,000 an hour, £1,500 an hour, if they can get it, fine, fantastic, go for it. But you've got to be prepared to
100%.
work with the venue and the event that you're working towards. I mean, if we, as Dan knows, if we pull off this event in the south, I'm on the verge, and you probably hear it here first, I'm on the verge of it being a free party. And I mean free party. Which means I ain't paying no DJs either.
No.
Because the whole point of it is, like, let's try and reinvigorate the industry a little
100%.
bit. Yeah. And let's have a free party and let's get the people back together. I might call it Find Your Tribe. That's what I'm looking at the minute. Let's find the tribe of people, and then let's start finding those tribes all the way around the country. Anyway, I'm going off tangent again, and I need to stop.
There is something actually that's on my mind about that, but we can go to that later on.
Okay.
Yeah, we can go to that later on.
Okay, so you started doing some freebies in the bar. You were doing some warm up sets. Then what happened next?
Yeah, I mean, really, it started building up, right? So I started getting gigs 3-4 times a week, and still doing the day job. And then I think there was a point when I started doing gigs off my own back. I got my first gig myself in my local nightclub, which was doing a warm up set. And then unfortunately COVID happened. Great, right? COVID happened, lockdown. I was furloughed from my main job for 9 months, obviously clubs and everything. So I went from, having 2 jobs and working quite basically 24/7, to not having any jobs for a good part of 9 months. But for me, that's where it all changed, because I saw it, to be honest, as an opportunity to change something, right? Because I was gigging so much, I just completely fell in love with it. I'd, especially after that first night, like even just the kind of reaction and support that I got from people, I was like, right, this is kind of what I want to do. Before all of that and car sales and stuff, I was going to be a tank driver. I was going to join the army. So it was like a complete
you're still wearing that vibe now, aren't you?
The camo.
Yeah, so for me, it was lockdown, basically. Obviously, everything closed. So I was sort of sat here like, what am I going to do? What am I going to do with my time? And, because I was DJing so much, and at this point, it was a Friday or a Saturday or maybe both in my local club doing warm-up sets. So, you do the first maybe hour and a half to potentially 2 hours, depending on obviously how busy the night was, and then you'd hand over to the main resident for the night, right? But I'd got to a point, I was like, right, where or what can I do to progress it? And James Hype was streaming all the time and that kind of stuff, and I think it was at that point where I'd really found Tech House. Obviously, he was producing a lot, so he was, it was around the time of when his Hotline Bling edit came out on SoundCloud and the Ladbroke Grove edit, and all of those sorts of tunes. And I started watching loads of his streams. AB did it twice a week, and then I started streaming myself. I started doing loads of like local events. I actually did quite a few like local charity events. I helped raise, I think it was £10,000 from memory for a local hospital for their charity. So I did just so much stuff over lockdown, and it completely changed the way that I DJ. To be honest, before that it was commercial open format stuff, having the ability to go from a Storm Queen Look Right Through track to a 90s hip hop tune as an example, to then really kind of pushing the boundaries almost of watching James and what he's doing. To be fair, him and people like Rewire, Mal P, like massive inspiration for me because of their styles, right? They all do 4-deck mixing. It's very technical with EZ as well, like A-Track, those sort of people. I really started following all of them throughout lockdown. And then we came out of lockdown, and then I was like, right, what am I going to do? I've sort of started building a bit of a following. I was also under a different name by this point, so I've not always been Daniel James. When I was in the commercial stuff, it was the DJ Dan Sparrow tag, really original. And then it changed to DJS. And then kind of when I went through that phase, I was like, right, this is me. This is what I'm doing. Actually got involved in a local house music events brand called House Music. No, it was House Party Events. I think it was. Sadly, I don't think they're around anymore. And then basically just started doing like garden parties and stuff like that in Southampton and Portsmouth and all these sorts of places. I'm actually, as the day that we're recording this, I'm going up to Northampton tonight to Elysium to go back to back with one of the guys that I met called Jake Stokes, and it would be the first time I'm actually going back to back with him since doing those events, which was nearly over 5 years ago, which was mad. But yeah, we did all sorts of stuff. We did a couple of garden parties in Southampton. We did a couple garden parties in Portsmouth, and one of them was a silent disco, so your headphones, 2 DJs, and you got your different channels. For those that you don't know, did an event in the Spinnaker Tower as well, which was really cool. So we had each of the levels was set up, so DJs on. I started on the bottom floor. I think it was like a 45-minute sort of on the verge of warm-up set, and then went up into the middle, and then did an hour set. So, and then yeah, it was kind of like the progression of that, basically. Just kind of.
Were those opportunities from networking? Were they from people you'd
Basically,
met, or
yeah.
were you putting your name out there? How were you getting the traction?
I think it was a mixture of
Great.
all of it, really. It was. Wow. Yeah, I think it was a mixture of all of it, to be fair. Again, I was doing a heck of a lot of content at the time, so I was streaming on YouTube. I was putting some clips out and that kind of stuff, YouTube shorts and reels, and TikTok wasn't really as much of a thing as it is now. But for me, I think a lot of it is networking, right? I have been incredibly lucky to have met the people that I've met doing this, and I think a lot of it is because of the people that I've met that are connected to other people, right? So, as an example, the guy that did the Saturday nights at my local club at the time, Jason, he did it full time. He was a full-time DJ and producer, and he actually ghost produced for Kiss. So got talking to him, then actually got talking to Billy the Kid, of all people. Like how I then started doing all of these events down in Bognor Regis, and then kind of I've got a really good group of friends down there. Hayden Atkins and Ashley Harfield and all of these people. And then I started doing all these uploads on Instagram. Rashan K, which is obviously James Hype's tour manager, follows me out the blue, starts watching my stories. I, at the time, had a residency in a bar in Chichester, and he was like, oh yeah, I know this place. And then a couple of weeks after, I had a club set in a place called Sheik's, which isn't there anymore. And it turns out that he used to be a resident there, and he knows two of my friends that also used to play there. So it's like, I think,
small world.
yeah, it literally is. We've then connected since then. Obviously I've gone to a lot of James's or just even Stereotypes shows, right? And every time we see each other, I mean, I speak to Rashan quite a bit online now, and it's literally, I mean, I always used to say the same thing about the motor trade, right? My old boss was a boss of, a boss and whatever. I think really it's about what you know, but it's just as much about who you know. I don't think I would have done anything that I've done without being put in a position of knowing somebody. The reason why I was doing all those house party events, I got in a contact with the owner of the company, right, and then made friends from that. I've got obviously good friends with Jake, and he DJs in Elysium, and I've got in contact with their manager and that kind of stuff. So I think
there's sorry, mate.
No,
I think that
okay.
you're absolutely right there, and networking is how you and I connected. And let's face it, our paths probably would have crossed at some point, but they crossed through James Hype's Discord server initially.
Yeah.
And then since then we've obviously done a few bits and pieces with Cease and Desist, and you and I went to Zura's pop-up that I mentioned in the last podcast, and that's where we met Jude, and now Jude is here with us. And it's as long as the way I look at it, right, networking is fantastic and it's the way forward. And let's face it, when I got back into the music industry, I was a nobody. I wasn't using my original name from when I was DJing before. I'd lost all my DJ contacts, or they'd fallen off the wagon, or whatever had happened. And I'd come in from fresh, like every other brand new bedroom DJ comes in. I'm not saying that I'm anybody now, because I'm not. However, the people I've met in such a short space of time, and the opportunities that have been presented, and the things that are still happening, and the things that are yet to come, has all come from conversations and talking to people. But I also think that it's a really valid point to make at this stage, that networking isn't about you shoving your wares in people's faces the first time you meet them.
No.
One thing I've found from being this side of the chair is there's a lot of people that go, oh, I'm such and such, I do tech house DJs, can I come and play for you? Who are you? Who are you?
Who are you?
I used to do a lot of social media training, believe it or not.
With the irony.
And I used to do it for the automotive trade, because both Dan and I have automotive backgrounds as well. And one of the things I always used to say was, this was back at a time when socials, it was mainly Facebook, and socials were just becoming popular, and you'd see car dealer after car dealer going, look at this car, 5995, look at this car, 6195, look at this car, 7995, and you're like, mate, seriously, you're a used car salesman, essentially. Would you walk into a brand new bar in a brand new town, and the first thing you do when someone says, all right, mate, is go, what about a car?
Slap him with that,
What about a car? I got this fantastic Nissan Micra, mate. You want it? You wouldn't do that. You wouldn't have that conversation with that person. You'd snooze them. You'd get to know them. And if you're a decent salesman, you'd qualify them. And you'd work out what they're looking for. Are they in the market? Do they have a need? Is there anything wrong with their current car, etc., etc.? But you'd and 9 times out of 10, you'd probably, if you're a very good salesman, you go, do you want a beer, mate?
Yeah.
And you'd offer them a bit. You'd give them something first. You'd offer to help. You'd give them value. You'd put something to them first. You'd give before you take.
Solving a problem.
Always used to give my customers a cup of tea or a coffee or a hot chocolate. You know, you
Hey,
used to do Biscoff biscuits. It's great.
I work in retail now, and we've got 8 stores across the country. And in each one of those stores, if you walk in, we will offer you a JD. We'll offer you a glass. We'll offer the other half of a glass of prosecco. We'll sit you down. You can have a proper coffee with a Biscoff. You know, we'll sit you down, and we give that customer service in every single one of our stores, and we are one of, if not the only group to continue to do that in the high street.
It goes a long way.
It 100%.
Yeah,
100%. We've lost that connection and that feeling, and social media has taken a big part of that. And I think what's happened is people are taking their networking attributes from social media and putting it into face to face. And I'm not being funny. If you do that, you look like a bit of a tool. So it's careful how you get that networking, that balance right. So
I think you're completely right with that, really. The way I see it, I mean, it's like us, right? Perfect example. We're friends. I'm friends with everybody that I've worked with, because one thing I don't want to do, I don't want to be that guy that just randomly slides into somebody's DMs, you know, thinking I'm all of whatever, and then just, to be honest, looking like a bit of a prick. You know, there's a guy that I used to be really good friends with, and over lockdown, he was absolutely flying on SoundCloud. He used to do all these mashups and stuff like that. And he just flopped. He stopped doing it, but he had this attitude online of, oh yeah, I've got a certain amount of numbers on SoundCloud, so that must mean I'm, you know, God's greatest and whatever. And he would never get booked because he had just such a, you would see it in all of his Facebook and Instagram posts. He just, I don't know what it was. There was just something about the way he kind of come across, right? And I think that's the thing. You know me well enough by now that I've tried to be as genuine as I can about it, because I genuinely love it, right? You get people like us that do it because we love it, and then you get the people that do it because they sort of think, oh yeah, I might make a load of money and I might get super famous and that kind of stuff. And it's seeing that person that can do it in a genuine way. Because again, I'm friends with every single person that I've ever worked with, whether it's a live paid DJ set or a quick 15-minute interview on a local station or something like that. Everybody that I've done something with, I know on a personal level, and I think that's a big factor, to be honest, to why I've done what I've done and why I'm about to do what I'm about to do, because I've had people that have commented on some of my socials posts or sent me messages, and they say, we can tell that you care about it. We can tell that you genuinely love doing it because of the way that you come across.
It's massively important. I mean, chasing
100%.
numbers for fame and infamy is
it's not going to get you anywhere.
Yeah,
Definitely.
Yeah,
short-lived.
It's not sustainable.
Correct,
Like,
it's not.
if you're in it for the money and fame, I don't think
you don't make money in the music industry, mate, do you? Let's be real.
Like, or at least it takes a long time before you get there. So you genuinely, I mean, for me, I DJ and produce for fun mainly, and I'm just lucky that I'm able to do something I find fun and get recognized for it. Genuinely,
Exactly.
I feel very lucky. It's a hobby at the moment. So
yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
absolutely. If you, I mean, I'm probably more producer than I am DJ these days. I get a lot more enjoyment sat in front of Ableton. I don't know why. Maybe it's a phase thing. I have recently graced the decks a little bit more, and I'm finding a bit of a love for it again. But for me, if I produce a track and what I hear one person playing it, especially if it's on a live stream and I happen to be in that stream and they play that track,
it's a buzz, isn't it?
The feeling is immense. I mean, you know me, I used to race cars, and crossing that finish line on a podium was a buzz. The buzz of hearing your own music played by somebody else that you've not paid or prompted them to play it
on the other side of the world. haven't
On
managed.
the other side of the world. I mean, hell, I've sold more cease and desist T-shirts to Canada than any other country,
Really?
and that blows my mind. Blows my mind. And if you haven't got any
Okay.
cease and desist merch, check out cndesist.com/shop.
Somewhere.
Shameless plug.
It's beyond. No, that one isn't. That one, limited edition, still
Oh,
available.
I should have been wearing it, shouldn't I? Come on.
Oh,
Well, you did miss a trick there, Mr. James.
Yeah, I should have.
But no, it's absolutely that there are people in it for the wrong reasons, and I think those that are in it for the right reasons just need to accept that a little bit and have a little bit of patience, because
100%.
they're not going to stay. And
Not going
to
anywhere.
be fair, mental health is a massive issue in the music industry, and the people that are all about a like and a thumbs up and a heart on their social media content may struggle with the tougher times in the music industry.
Yeah.
I struggle with it. I know, Dan, you've had your moments with it, and it's not something that I'm going to talk about in this stream, but it is a podcast. Sorry, I've done it again. It is a topic that we are gonna hit on, because I think it's massively valid.
Yeah, 100%. I've got some things I could say about that.
Yeah. So okay, so we've fast forward. We've skipped a bit in the middle, but we've got an idea from clubbing and networking. You've got a couple of events. You've been some paid events. It's been a bit sporadic, a bit here and there. You mentioned about residents. You've had a couple of residencies along the way as well. I'm gonna fast forward slightly. So if we fast forward to August last year, you were involved with cease and desist with me when I first set up the brand, and helped me with the organisation of our first event, which obviously, as we know, Jude came along too. Then all of a sudden, it just kind of went a little bit berserk, didn't it? Things kind of just went, and
a bit mental.
it got a little mental. So
just a bit.
for those that don't know, and for those that don't follow Daniel on his socials, which are also linked in the description, go check him out, give him a follow.
This is the breakdown.